Welcome to Pain to Power. I'm your host, Marya Kazmi, also known as Brown Girl Interrupting. And this is a show where we explore the journeys that transform our struggles into our strengths. And this week, I have definitely had some steps that I've had to reflect on in knowing and drawing on those tools to help me to find my center in a lot of chaos around me. And so hopefully today you're going to walk away with some better self awareness and knowing how you can move past your pain and found your inner truth to really embracing this journey that we're all on of healing, growing, and learning. And today I am super excited to have my guest, Natalie Bedard, also known as Nat Nat. She is an energy healing specialist who is taking individuals on transformative journeys to heal. She's dedicated to her work to helping others uncover and connect to their truest selves. And I'm really excited to have us be joined by Nat Nat. Welcome, Nat Nat.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to have you on my podcast and to be here with your audience. I don't take that lightly. And I want to thank you for giving me the most precious gift that you have, which is your time. That is the most valuable thing that you can offer to anybody. So I'm thankful to be here in this space with you and to do this deep dive of a conversation.
I am so grateful to have you here today. And I mean, honestly, you've already set the tone of exactly why you're here. You have this beautiful energy and spirit to ground us and just remind us of our humanness in every space. And I did get an opportunity to be on your show and experience that. And in particular, on your show, you always have this one piece that I feel is so important. And I know we talked about this, but I would love for you to bring it into this space, which is to take that mindful moment. And if you would be willing to walk us through what it is to have a mindful moment and tell us a little bit about why it is you start your shows with those.
It would be an honor to guide us into a mindful moment. You know, we tend to go, 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 and we forget to take a pause to do our inner check, to see what's going on internally, to actually feel our emotions, which is the work that I do. And so I started implementing these mindful moments because in a place where everybody's telling people to meditate, they don't actually demonstrate and invite people into that. And I understand the benefits of
I
taking
know
a
you
moment
have it
for
going
yourself.
out pretty soon. You know my acting guard, hype me letters, keep me in tune. I still remember when we
A
first
little
met.
background music
It was
going
up north.
on. It's a different shift from the mindful moment there.
And that's, this is what life brings to you. It's
Yeah.
not always performative. And how are you going to show up in the chaos when things don't go the way that you want it? So I love that, the universe brought this exact example so that you can see in real time, how do you show up with these things? Like internally, it's like, oh my gosh, all these things. Yet, can you be playful with it also and
Right.
engage with what life is presenting? So to come back and, thank you for the honor of holding the space to do a mindful moment. So, if you are willing, I'm going to ask you and the listeners that are in here and the ones that are going to be, and for the ones that are going to be, if you're listening to this while driving, because sometimes people listen to these podcasts while driving or needing their visual, please do not close your eyes. Safety first. I want you to keep yourself and everyone around you safe, yet the other prompts you're able to follow through. So I'm going to ask you to gently, get comfortable in your seat. And if it's safe to do so, gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. You're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its rhythm and allow it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. There may be some thoughts or to-do lists that have popped up in your mind, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into your body. Just being with the breath. Again, more thoughts have probably popped up. It's okay. Bring your awareness to your breath, beginning again, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping even deeper into your body, allowing yourself to just be with the breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. Now, these are the moments and the mindful moments that everybody can do to take that pause for themselves, to give themselves permission to do a check-in. In a world where we feel that, nobody's caring about us, we also have to ask, are we caring for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. So true. I knew that this is going to be, and just for my viewers, this is going to be what this is. There is no script here of the conventions of what pain to power looks like every time. And Natalie brings a very different energy for a reason, and it's intentional. As we just did that, I was thinking yesterday, and I started this saying I've had a heavy week, and it probably came to a culmination last night when I came home with my daughter, and I was just in an emotional state. And she laid on the floor, and she said, "Do you sometimes just want to lay on the floor and do nothing?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, can we just lay on the floor and be?" And we did. And I cried, and I felt the heaviness, but like we did it kind of almost together. And this moment just kind of like reminded me of that letting go on the floor, just laying on our backs, looking up at the sky and taking it in and just being. So thank you. And thank you for starting us there. And really, I asked you here because I think that the work that you do as a energy healer is very much grounded in understanding how to take pain and turn it into power. But this has all come from your own personal journey. And I always ask my guests what that means to you to turn pain into power.
I want to first thank you for being transparent, because what you just shared, I don't want it to be really glossed over. I don't know if the listeners understand the depths of how you're changing things for your daughter. You're allowing emotions to be invited rather than act like everything's okay. You're allowing there to be feeling. And, thank you for being that change and modeling to her that it's okay. It's okay to invite the heaviness and feel it and, honor your body. Just lie there for a minute and it will pass. Doesn't feel like it sometimes in the moment, yet when we give ourselves permission with the messiness, So I just want to say thank you for that, because I think these are the things that when we share, it's relatable, and then somebody becomes curious of, oh, wait, there's a different way of doing things. I can listen intuitively what my body is asking me to do, even though it goes against the narrative or the conditioning or programming.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that because it was a struggle. I know even just in the moment, I was like, do I push aside my needs of what I know my body is asking me to do for myself right now to show up as this mother who can just be and do it all and stuff those feelings? Or do I show her that I don't have the capacity to stuff? I have to just feel right now.
mhm,
And it's a struggle, right? That's the thing.
of
Part of this
course.
journey of pain to power is the constant decision making that we have to do in all of it.
I think, the biggest thing is, do I be authentic to myself, or do I still keep putting other people at ease with the mask that I'm wearing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's that's
It's a heavy one, because we have a narrative of what, a good parent looks like. We have a narrative of what a good person looks like. We have a narrative of what a strong person looks like. And when is it that we're actually being authentic of being us, being ourselves, and allowing ourselves to evolve and be revealed in the messiness? Yet what is needed for that is trust within self, and also safety. The
mm,
reason why we don't do that, the reason why you didn't want to do that, is because it didn't feel safe. How do I show my vulnerability? How do I allow it to be expressed? And so when we actually do the inner work, it feels very counterintuitive. It feels very scary. It feels very big. Yet at a certain point, you can no longer BS yourself. And your body's like, please, if we're really going to do this, surrender and allow the body to release and process in the way that it needs to. And you're also modeling to your daughter what it is to be human, not the role of something.
mm. But there's a fear associated with that, right? That authenticity, that showing up as ourselves, that vulnerability, it's all rooted in, yeah, we need the safety, but there's almost also this fear we have to overcome, even when we are safe, because we are scared of breaking the narratives. And I've had to work through this for years and years and years now as a parent. And like I said, I have moments still, right? I definitely chose at this moment, but there have been times where I didn't,
Mhm.
right? Like I didn't choose my authenticity. Um, so I think that there's so much that we need to understand about ourselves and accept about ourselves that we're often afraid to do.
Of course, we don't even know how to have a proper relationship with fear. In a
No.
world that keeps telling you not to fear and be fearless and all this, it's like, well, biologically, understanding your nervous system has fear. There's healthy fear. So it's recognizing your fear is always going to want to protect you. So when you felt the aversion in your body, or whenever we feel aversion to do something beyond what we have always been doing in a pattern, of course, viscerally, it's going to feel uncomfortable inside, until we actually do this new way. And then we tell her, it teaches our body, oh, you're safe to take this action. Even though we have scripted a narrative that if we go beyond what this performative or pattern is, we're going to be in danger. So it's really creating that safety within your body, that no matter what the experience we're going to go through, we're not going to separate from self. That is the biggest,
Mm.
like, that's what the journey is coming back into self. A lot of people think that they need to become somebody new. That's what healing is becoming someone new. when in actuality, it's removing the layers of pain to come back to the greatness that's already in you, that you've been separated from. It's connecting back into your value, into your worth, learning to trust yourself in a world that tells you you're not enough and you don't know what you're doing and you can't trust yourself. Of course, you're going to, second guess and doubt until you really understand to sit in that power of giving yourself permission and trusting yourself and holding space that you're going to make mistakes, yet you're accountable to face those things, not run and hide from it.
Well, and what you just said, kind of like it stuck with me. You said that we create our own safety. So I think oftentimes, I know for me, like even when I think of safety, I think of the external, and it's harder to think about it within ourselves. But even that, this weekend, I had a moment where the environment around me didn't feel it, right? I had to internally trust myself, trust the world around me, trust the universe, trust God, trust everything to know that I was safe, even if I didn't sense it around me, even if the people around me weren't making me feel that. And I think that that's a lot of this, right? That is this journey. It is that internal piece. So with that, I do want to know more about you, and I do want so much for my guests to know more about you. So I'm going to shift us a little bit
Yeah.
just to
All right.
say, I mean, for you though, that internal journey of coming back to self, how does that all connect to just your own roots of your upbringing and who you are?
So, I had a lot of trauma when I was a child. So, with that trauma, what trauma does is it separates you from self. And I created a narrative and it othered me and it really separated me from my worth. And I was, I come from a biracial family. Father is Jamaican heritage, my mother's Canadian heritage. So in that and my father was absent. So I didn't know how to find my identity. And so there was a lot of loss in that. And so my teen years and my 20s, it is a blessing now because I don't have that strong identity to something. It's that I have an identity within myself, not this construct that men have created with culture and races and all this stuff. Yet in that, I created a narrative that I wasn't good enough. And so anything that I would do, it would be repulsive. And I, like you just mentioned, going on the outside of myself to feel that validation and that worth. And, how I got to this part of being able to be confident and loving myself and being my worth is that I came close to dying almost 11 years ago. I had lesions in my brainstem and in my cerebellum. And in that experience of being in the hospital for almost 40 days and the medical system not knowing what was going on internally and not being able to give me a diagnosis, I was released without that diagnosis. So that means no plan. And the only place I could go was within. There wasn't anybody being able to help me on the outside to figure out what was going on internally with my biology. And so thankfully I learned meditation, a year after that. That was in 2015. And that brought me more profoundly within myself and regulating that nervous system and somatically releasing so much suppressed emotions and narratives and belief systems within my psyche and the biology, because your body stores these experiences and emotions if they're not processed in real time. And there's no real processing everything in real time. Yet a lot of us, what I know to be true is we don't feel our authentic emotions. Like, even to all of the experience and lived experience I have, there's still moments where my authentic emotions feel too threatening and feel too big to feel. So I feel it to a certain degree, but not the full charge of it. Yet I know to come back to that and process and feel, because if I keep it down, it's only going to be worse when it really has to be processed later on. Yet even in this, like, I think sometimes people think in this healing journey, there's going to be this arrival place and I'm going to have it all figured out. And it's like, well, in actuality, the figuring out is just be open to what life is going to bring you as experiences and honor the capacity that you have. Like, give
Mm-hmm.
yourself permission to really recognize what your capacity is. Because, if your emotions if you get too overwhelmed with your nervous system, those protective emotions are going to come in. And when those protective emotions come in, they usually hijack our behavior. And then we take actions that we later like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Yet it's just all in the name of protection. Yet, I'm saying all this and people may be like, oh, it's so simple, or it's this. And it's like, it is very simple once you start doing your work and you understand the internal dialogue and what goes on. If you look at it in a method of protection, that's much more easier for you to relate with your nervous system than rather than chastise yourself and judge yourself and punish yourself, because you're not going to have an opening to be able to invite those authentic emotions to come up and be felt.
I love that. And so, like, within that though, how did you discover your capacity? Like, what are those moments like for you where you have been able to?
Feeling those authentic emotions, seeing where it's overwhelming and I don't have a grasp of the present moment right now. There's all kinds of narrations and things going up, and I'm not able to fully access what is the choice I need to make. Where am I presently? What is the responsibility? Like, for instance, in my parenting role, there's sometimes where this little girl inside me is raging and freaking out of, I don't want to be this parent. And I have to calm that inner terrain to be able to show up of, okay, I understand you're going on with this, yet at this present moment, this is what the responsibility is. We're going to feel what there is, yet you don't have the permission to hijack what the role and responsibility is, because this is where we are right now. I get that you don't want to accept reality, yet if you don't accept reality, there's going to be suffering. Yet I'm not going to shut down what I'm feeling inside, but it also isn't going to take command of the choices that I have to make.
So there's a balance between this existence in reality, right? Like, and I think sometimes the spiritual conversations, and we've talked about this, right, tend to be like, it's like this out of body experience, and it's this utopia of life that you're just walking around all happy go lucky, right? Like everything is great. That's not the reality, right? It really is existing in the reality of what it is, but also finding that balance of understanding ourselves is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about our nervous systems, and it's interesting because I feel this conversation keeps coming up, and I don't know if everyone fully understands it. I would love for you to break it down a little bit more. When we say we need to regulate our nervous systems, what is it exactly that's happening, and what is exactly we need to do?
Our nervous system has one function: don't die. And so it is going to be activated with anything that feels like death. And what people don't realize is psychologically, you can create thoughts that will feel like a death, yet your nervous system can't tell the difference. So whenever it feels like there's a threat, it's going to be activated in a protection mode. And it's going to we've created these defense mechanisms to be able to navigate in the world. And also, we've created the defense mechanisms to protect our vulnerability. So whenever there's something that feels like a threat, shields come up, vulnerability gets protected, and we're not able to access that. We're just going into the defense mechanisms of protecting, the nervous system, but we're not the nervous system. That's that ego that people talk about. Those are the defense mechanisms of the nervous system. That's why I engage people feel the fear. That's why I engage people befriend the anger. Anger is a protective emotion. yes, the actions that we may take are not in our best interest. That's why feel the emotion, befriend it. What is it trying to protect? And most times when people realize, oh, it's protecting other emotions like sadness and fear that aren't able to come to the front line because we had to suppress those probably when we were younger because the environment didn't feel safe to allow these. So anger came as that protective emotion. So being able to understand your nervous system is when it's dysregulated. Why do I all of a sudden start yelling at my children? Why do I get this road rage when I'm on the road? Why do I shut down when I feel embarrassed or feel an insult from somebody? These are all different protective mechanisms that go on, yet you need to understand what your biology is trying to say. And I think people can understand when they feel closed-hearted, where there's apathy and it's just like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to feel anymore. Yet by doing that, then you're not able to feel the joy. You're not able to feel the fullness of life. So to open up to that vulnerability takes a lot of work. Anybody that has gone through heartbreak or pain understands I got to close myself up because this is just too overwhelming. And to open back up takes a lot of strength because it's like, I don't want to experience that again. Yet by being closed, you're not feeling the fullness and your fullness of life. And you're also not able to hear yourself. You're only hearing those protective emotions. And then you're just kind of repeating patterns and you're not showing up in your authentic way. So by opening and regulating that nervous system, regulating means creating safety, that there's an openness and a flexibility, that you're able to intake and listen to information, not just think you know what the story is going to be. And actually listen, like what people don't realize when we say feeling and emotions, I know some people will say, well, emotions are garbage. And it's like, emotions are data, they're information. They're giving you. Yet it doesn't mean that you have to follow through with the information. It's like a GPS. The GPS is going to give you some information. You can take this route. Yet you may realize, wait, I can bypass and take this other road. And it might take me a little quicker, but the GPS doesn't understand that. But it doesn't mean you're going to follow the GPS exactly where it is. It's just information. You still have the power to make your choices and choose what actions you're going to take. So it's really understanding internally how you have not trusted yourself and how there's a lot of conditioning and narratives that have been pushed and ingrained into you that you can start to realize, like, is this the life that I want to live? Is this how I want to show up? And this isn't, in a society that is microwavable and everything comes out in 2 minutes, or you have prime delivery the same day. This inner work is not a snap of a finger. It's not a pill that you can take, and it's not a miracle of, oh, utopia just came. If you're really doing the work, there is no arrival. It's just being able to show up with life and being accountable of facing the fear, not repressing it, not bypassing it, not suppressing it, acknowledging it. And when you feel the overwhelm of it, being able to slow things down like we did at the beginning, that mindful moment, because your breath is always in the now. But we're usually in our heads and not in our bodies to really embody the tools and be present with life.
I love that. And I see we've got some friends in the chat. Welcome, Dr. Howard. Thank you. Emotions are data. Love that. It's so true. And Film de Montaigne says, indeed, yes, for sure. Thank you for our Ranters fam showing up and supporting. It's this accepting, naming, and it feels like it's really getting to the root cause of our why for our emotions. And that is deep and continuous work. I'm feeling it every time. I'm getting to a deeper why. I'm getting to a deeper connection to historically, to my childhood, to my family's childhoods, right? Like it's like you keep going to those layers, and it almost is this not dissociation, but almost like a disconnect. Now
Mhm.
we're able to look at our feelings as information to help guide us to where we need to go next in
Mhm.
those steps, and that's huge. But you also brought up that the feelings and the emotions connect us to joy, right? And I want to talk about this because I think that you always leave your messages saying be playful and kind to yourself. But tell me about that. And even in your own journey, like how did you come to accepting that playfulness and inner child after spending so much time in a different place mentally about yourself?
I always had that childlike, and I always had that confidence. I didn't see it as confidence, yet, in my 20s and my 30s, I would just dress the way I wanted to. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't subscribe to a lot of things. And people would be like, how can you just be so free like that? Like, how are you in that way? And I always was energetic and understood, that playfulness. So I was very thankful that I didn't get untethered, like I was still tethered to that part. And so, the kindness, only the reason why I keep saying to people, remember to be kind to yourself, is to constantly remind myself of it. Because at one point, I was not kind to myself. There was always berating of, look what you did, look what this, look at that. Yet I came to understand that inner critic was a dysregulated nervous system, just in survival and not being able to feel my vulnerability, not feeling safe to feel my emotions, and being repulsed by it, feeling like it was, an inconvenience. And you're displacing me with a lot of things and a lot of people. Yet it's like you're going on the outside. And I when you learn that, oh no, it's the journey is to go inside of you. And so that kindness and that playfulness is what helps to regulate a nervous system, so that you can open yourself up to see possibilities and not just be in the problems and the judgments and the analytical part of the mind and the brain that are protective mechanisms.
So is it almost like that joyfulness is the key to us being able to be vulnerable?
Yeah. Yeah. Because like, I think sometimes people mistake happiness with joy. Joy
How would
doesn't
you
mean,
distinguish those?
well, happiness is getting your way.
Mm.
When everything is lining up, you're in a very happy state. Everything is just exhilarating and it's going. Yet you can still have joy when things are not going your way. You can still be open and engaged with life. You can still be in a higher elevated space, even though there's so much chaos around you. You're making the choice of how you're going to show up with life. You're not going to be repulsed by it because it's not going your way and your mind's being disturbed.
So joy is an internal creation
Yeah.
that you get to create for yourself. Like you get to build that for yourself in any moment. So if you have this ability to know what that joy is or how to get to joy for yourself, it's almost your superpower, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's part of your life force.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's so empowering because oftentimes we get stuck in the narratives. We get stuck in the moving forward and we don't stop and pause. And certainly joy seems like, especially in adulthood, is this luxury
Mhm.
that you almost look down on others for having, because why would you waste your time doing that when you have to be productive in this world? We don't honor it.
Mhm. We don't
Um,
know the blessing of it. It's our life force.
love that. It's our life force. It really is. And it's funny you say that. Like, so I took up biking, and and I had a day where I just couldn't. I just couldn't, right? Like I was holding too much and I didn't know what to do with myself. And all I could think of was I needed to just move, and I got on my bike and I just biked and biked and biked and biked, right? And I felt the wind and I felt this joy, right? It was my joy. I got it. I created it, right? Like I got on the bike and I just created it. But I think that's it, right? Like it's like this release almost. It's such a beautiful thing when you can find whatever that tiny little thing is that is your joy. Because like you said, it's your life force. It
Yeah.
gives you life. It feeds you back to being whole again. And then I was able to come back and be like, okay, now I can think. Now I can process this thing. Now I can look at it again and see it for what it is, right? Um, so you talked about breathing as one of the techniques to pause and connect ourselves and and recognize our nervous system and how we're being reacting to it. But what are some other tools and ways that you found helped you as you were understanding yourself better and coming home to yourself, as you said?
Dancing. Dancing is the most easiest way to create a higher state and also allow your body to express what it's feeling without having to use words and not getting caught up in our analytical mind. So giving it that somatic release with that expression in the body so that our nervous system needs movement unless, you're not able to access that because of certain physiological with the spinal cord. Yet otherwise, if you are able, but even that, like even if you're in a wheelchair, you're still, if you're moving, there's movement in that. It feels the frequency of movement. So when we move, we're able to better express and feel those energies, moving around in our body. Another one was journaling. Journaling was very impactful for me because that was a space where I could be honest with myself and not judge myself and not feel afraid by sharing this with somebody else that they'll reject me. Because the biggest thing was for me not to reject myself. And so doing that journaling in a very honest space of just put it all out there, no matter how foolish or how childish or how embarrassing it may be, allow it to be out there so that I'm a whole with a W and no longer these holes with an H because I don't know how to integrate and accept these parts, these experience, these actions I've done. It's already happened. Yet why am I hiding from it or avoiding it? It's a part of me. If I'm not integrating and accepting it, then I have these holes and I'm splintered in places. And I'm fragmented and nothing goes very well with fragmented. So it's like, how do I bring this as a whole? So that journaling is, what helped me to cultivate that honesty. Because until you're really honest with yourself, you're not really able to call out that BS that
And
we do
that's
with
a big
ourselves.
piece of the healing journey, right? Like it is the honesty with ourselves, which is hard, which is very hard. I saw that Phil Montaigne said, love that line. I know a hole with a W, that's bars for sure. Yes, yes, right. I'm taking that one with me. You're dropping all these little gems, Nat, for us. And so important though, right? So dancing, yes, I'm all for it, and I've seen you in your joy moments dancing. I love it. It gives me joy to watch you dance.
Yeah.
And that journaling is like so like facing ourselves. Facing ourselves is probably the hardest part. Like, and I think it's really sometimes that beginning piece of this. It's a constant thing, but it's that starting point, right? That facing yourself.
Yeah, and journaling doesn't only mean with words. Journaling can be with colors. You can color, so you can use colors and different, shapes and textures to be able to express yourself because the verbiage isn't there yet. Yet the feeling and the sensory, we think that journaling only has to be a certain way. Yet it's not only with words, it could be with coloring. Look at when we were young, we had to use art to be able to give ourselves expression. And so being able to access that part that isn't limited, that it can be limitless on how we're going to express, so that we can get to that honesty, that it feels more safe that I put this in a color and in a shape and in a certain structure, that I can start relating to myself that way. Because if I put it into words, it's just too bold for me right now. So it's finding ways of how you can get to that honesty and that
I love that. And
expression.
I love that you offer different ways. Like, I mean, that's it, right? We're not all the same. We don't all process things the same. We don't all need the same things. And different trauma has a spectrum of where it hits you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so important, because everyone is not facing the same level of pain.
Mm-hmm. And we're all neurodivergent. So we all process in different ways. We all communicate, we all express in different ways. And some people haven't been afforded and allowed to express the way that they need to, because the education system has told them that the way that they go about it is wrong. They don't fit in the box. So they've been squeezing themselves in doing it a certain way that was a disservice to them, because they weren't fully able to express themselves, because they're trying to figure out how to do it this way rather than being able to just freely do it the way that they need to do it. And that in itself is a totally different conversation that we can get into also. Yet I don't think this time has enough space for that. Yet again, it's coming back to trusting yourself and understanding your neurodivergency and recognizing that you can give yourself permission to try it a different way, not just the way that everybody tells you it needs to go this way. Like, I remember this one woman, had said, when you're kneading dumpling in the Caribbean, everybody thinks it has to be done with a hand. Yet there's many methods that you can create dumplings. Yet in the Caribbean, they'll always tell you it's always with your hands. Yet some people will have to use a spoon. Other people will have to use a machine. They're still creating dumpling. Yet if you're only being told that it's only this way, then you're always thinking you can't measure up and you're not able to do the things that other people are doing, not seeing that there's a different method of doing that.
That's a huge statement you just made. When we tell people or create this idea that there's one way, we're actually creating this idea in other people's minds of their own worth, when that one way doesn't align with them, right? Then I must not fit, then I must not be doing it right. That's huge, I think, in terms of our thinking about just what our messages have an impact, like how those have an impact on others. All of this, we talk about that individual pieces, and just as in your work, that individualized understanding of self. I'm just wondering, you are an energy healing specialist. Tell me a little bit about what that means in your work that you do and how you support the clients that you're working with.
So energy healing specialist means regulating the nervous system. So I invite people into a safe space that they can feel. To regulate the nervous system means to feel your emotions. It means to deactivate the defense mechanism so you can be in your vulnerability. And for some, that it feels like a threat, because I've been told my vulnerability is no good and I'm not to trust it. So to come back into that, is its own journey. It's warrior work. Yet it's allowing that space to be there so that there's safety. So the simplicity of, like I'm saying, a safe space and for people to feel, it sounds very simple, and it is, but the layers that you have to remove to allow yourself to come into this space. Some people, they're willing to engage with it because of certain circumstances. I was willing to engage with it in the way that I did because I had death knocking at my door. I was told I was going to die in 6 months without a prognosis. Without a diagnosis. So where else am I going to go? I have to go internally. There wasn't this kind of savior on the outside that I could rely on. So the space that I hold, and I also understand that So many of us have been shunned. So many of us haven't had that safe space to be honest with ourselves, to accept ourselves, to have somebody witness our big emotions and not pull away or not tell us to feel something different. How many times has somebody cried in front of another person and been told, don't cry? Why are you doing that? Be something other than what you're feeling right now.
Mm.
So how am I supposed to figure out things if you're telling me what I'm feeling is wrong or it's not acceptable in the space? So then that doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable, So I've created this because I know what it felt like for myself for so long. And so now that I can hold that space for others, and then they can discover the power within themselves, that they can be empowered to be them, to be in their greatness, to be connected in trust and confidence and worth. It's the best gift I could ever mirror back to somebody. Like a lot of people think it's me, and it's like, no, it's you doing the work. I'm just holding the space for you to feel safe to go back within your body. And whenever you try to go on the outside, I'm just reminding you, you're going the wrong way. Go back in the journey within self.
Mm. And you very gently remind that, I can say from personal experience. Because it is hard, right? It is hard to go back to ourselves. And with all this, what role does community play? Because I feel like sometimes we say, and I think the narrative that is that the messages we get from outside, which is often sometimes community is the challenge in our healing at times, because we're given a narrative of what we're meant to be or what role we need to play. So how does community become a support system in this as well?
Well, there's different layers of that safety, and people really understanding what safety and what community is supposed to be. I think a lot of us, we're indoctrinated with this independence and be independent, where it's like, well, that we're all walking each other home. And we need to create better spaces to feel our humanness. And that's what community is supposed to be. That, okay, even when you mess up, we're still going to encourage you to remember where your greatness is. And we're going to create that accountability. But we have to create a circle of when you're in your low state and I'm in a high state, I can remind you, and vice versa. But we're not going to be in that comparison trap and the judgment of things. I think a lot of times in community, there's so much judgment, and then it doesn't feel safe to reveal yourself, because who wants to be shunned or ostracized? And then if something needs to change, if I can't reveal it to the community, how can I go about changing? Because I'm hiding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really creating new language within our communities of what are these new definitions we're going to create, not just bring what was in the past into the present. It's really recreating new narratives for what community stands for and redefining that.
That's powerful to think about. But recreating a narrative of community is that something that I guess we need to come together and recognize that, one, the narrative we've had has been damaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then to really talk about, so what does that look like? And just thinking about that, I've shared with you before, and my listeners know that I'm in education, and currently the state of many of my schools, many of the schools that I've been in, there is an existing trauma of things experienced within the school between hate and bias and student staff relations, but even things outside, right? Community things that happen, students' home lives themselves, staff's home lives themselves, and the world with all that's happening. How would you say we need to start to shift the culture of our schools to recognize that existence of that trauma, but also to start to heal it?
You have to start speaking about fear. Fear will hijack anything, and fear is going to look for safety, even in the most toxic and unsafe things. When somebody is being racist or having bigotry, if you really peel that away, you understand that it's fear. They don't know how to accept the diversity. They've been told an indoctrination that something other than them is unsafe. So they're pushing that away. When we start really opening up the dialogue of what fear looks like, then we're able to integrate it. But we're going around the thing. We're trying to course correct behavior rather than feel. You can only do CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, for only a certain way, and it's only going to get you to a certain level. But then you got to feel. So let's talk about fear and what fear can do as a malignancy in our thoughts, in our actions. Why are we not inviting it into the dialogue so we can better understand? And then people can be vulnerable of revealing, you know what, I have this thought and I sometimes want to challenge it, but this is what I think. But what do? We beat it down that you shouldn't be thinking this way. So then how is change supposed to happen? If somebody cannot be safe to say, for instance, I am biased to this, or I have an aversion to this, or I'm prejudiced to this, or I'm prejudiced to that. Listening. We lack listening because it activates. You said something that I am offended by. And rather than take responsibility of that part that feels offended and allow a space of, let me hear a little bit more of where this comes from. To a certain degree, like when there's no reasoning, then there's no sense of having a dialogue with somebody. Yet, if you're not open within yourself to listen, then how do you think change is going to come about?
But there's a point there, I think, that you made, right? It's the self-awareness piece, right? Like it is recognizing and knowing that self-awareness of whether that is a fear, like what is it that we're afraid of? What is it that I don't know? What is it that I'm trying to understand or feeling threatened by in my environment, right? But it's naming it very openly. And I think that, that is something that we struggle with still. That is still something that needs to happen, but that's a big piece. And I appreciate you lifting that up. And so before we finish up today, I know that we've had a beautiful conversation. I'm so grateful for your space today. Are there any parting pieces of wisdom or things that you feel you can offer to our audience, just as they are continuing to understand themselves better, to be aware of the things, to feel the vulnerability, to feel the feelings, what that might be?
Like I leave to everybody is to remember to be kind and gentle with yourself and know that you matter. To begin caring for yourself, to really caring for yourself in all the spaces that you are, all the characters that you are. That your work, your inner work, matters, because how you show up with your energy is much more valuable than any words or any actions that you take. Because when you're open and you're vibrant and you're in joy, you infect everybody else around to be wanting to open up and vibrate high like that also. So know that you are worth connecting into your life force and feeling that joy, and knowing that that inner work, as daunting and as uncomfortable and as tiresome as it can be, there's a great benefit from it. So, do that inner work and allow yourself to rest too, please. Slow down. Give yourself permission to rest.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Nat, for your time. And yes, let's walk away feeling that joy, being those lights, that energy, and to give ourselves grace. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. And if you're watching, please make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. This show is brought to you in association with the iRant Network. And again, Nat, thank you for your time. Please make sure you follow her on Instagram. Her website is also all linked below. And tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. on YouTube, as well as on Brown Girl Interrupting and on the iRant Network and the Ranters Union. Thank you again, Nat. Appreciate all your time. It's beautiful.
Take care.
Thank you. My world has slowly crumbled around me countless times, and every time I rebuild with the pieces I've been given to birth something so transformational and beautiful that no one else knew might exist before it was shown to them. These moments tend to coincide within my romantic path. The universe has been telling me to focus on the revolution and not romance. It has over time given me the tools, resilience, and light to turn my pain into power. And only now do I see that the key to this always resided in the love and knowing I had in myself, not from the external sources of family or men. The message I have been avoiding might be that my time in this world I had existed in was not to receive love, but to put it out there for others to see, feel, and heal through. Revolution before romance moves pain into power.